This is Brett Hayworth, and welcome to What's Your Frequency on Siouxland Public Media. With this show, we give you a wide range of important information on key issues that impact our lives. Immigration has been one of the ways by which the United States has grown its population. Back in the 1800s, when the nation was less than a century old, people from a host of European nations, plus some other places, came to see America as a place of prosperity and a good place to live. Some were seeking to flee oppressive governments or to get away from places with subpar economies. So they started moving to the United States, typically at first going past the Statue of Liberty in New York City to be processed through the steps of living here and often becoming naturalized citizens. As time went on, the places from which people migrated to the United States broadened, and the races of those peoples arriving became much more diverse. Many people saw that as a great aspect of America, although others pushed back on whether immigration is a net positive. Immigration has been a fraught topic for some people. Back in the 1920s, in the novel Babbitt by Sinclair Lewis, the main character, who sees himself as an upstanding businessman, often voices his anti-immigration stances and worries about how immigrants are being assimilated into society. While many people today still share that view of George Babbitt, others see the benefits of immigration. The United States has the biggest population of immigrants in the entire world, and people who like that point to some of the outcomes, such as providing a better educated workforce, greater occupational specialization, and higher overall economic vitality. Culturally, immigration can help reverse low population growth as the number of children born in families drops in some areas. It also broadens the way people live, as the newcomers bring with them distinctive customs, languages, and values. These national discussions on immigration are still prevalent and were roundly aired in the 2024 presidential contest. It's important to note that some people say they defend immigrants coming to the United States while adding that it should only be done legally. Others want to reduce the number of people who immigrate to America via legal means. President Donald Trump, who just took office this week for a second term, is promising mass deportations of people in the United States without legal status, and that possibility also informs the national discussion on immigration today. Against all that backdrop, for this episode of What's the Frequency, I want to discuss the value of immigration and immigrants. We have three guests here in Sioux City at Mary J. Tralia Community House, where I'm at today. That facility was founded in 1921 to help struggling foreign-born people become U.S. citizens and to build better lives in Siouxland. My guests are Executive Director Barb Newhouse, plus Andrea Perret, one of the agency's Department of Justice representatives who works with clients on a range of immigration matters, correct? And the third person is Anna Vu, a client of the Mary J. Tralia Community House, who took English language learner classes as part of her path to becoming a citizen. Thank you all for doing this. Barb and Andrea, can you please take us back to the time when the Tralia House was founded? What was taking place in the 1920s in Sioux City that led Mrs. Tralia to found this agency?
Well, Mary J. Tralia founded the community house 103 years old, 103 years ago. And it was at a time when we actually had coming into the country a lot of the folks who were coming from Greece, that part of the world coming through Ellis Island and settling. We also had a lot of folks coming from the Russian-occupied part of Poland at the time. So we had a lot of folks coming from Jewish communities coming over as well. And it was during that time that we needed a place that folks were able to begin to learn English, begin to understand their path to citizenship in the United States. And in fact, Brett, if you look at the history of Sioux City and some of how our businesses were founded in Sioux City, you don't have to look very far. Look at Milwaukee Wiener. Look at State Steel.
Yeah.
You've got companies that are built on immigration, and that is largely due to a lot of work that Mary J. Tralia did back in the day.
Okay, thank you. And then Barb and Andrea, just explain the services that are available here. Just give a flavor of what you do.
Well, I'll give a flavor of the services, and then Andrea can go into the immigration legal piece a bit more. But Mary J. Tralia Community House, over the years, we have developed, we handle both immigration and legal services, and I'm going to stop there, and then I'll let Andrea speak to that in a second. We also handle resettlement services, which means refugees coming in to the country who are settling legally in this country. We will help them find a job, housing, get their children in school, get their Social Security numbers, make sure that they're getting state benefits, whether that's in Iowa, Nebraska, or South Dakota that they need, and continue to do that. We also operate a preschool. And so our preschool helps children. You don't have to be an immigrant. You don't have to be a refugee. You can be a child who needs preschool, and we operate that as well. We also have what are called family services, so that anybody who is needing help on trying to understand how to fill out a rental application or a loan application, or maybe they are applying for a job or a driver's license and they need help, we're going to help them. We offer English language learning classes so that folks coming in can continue to work on their English. And it's interesting. We have had people who have lived here for years who still don't feel their English is where it needs to be, and they will come and take English language learning classes. Additionally, sort of the 1-2 punch with immigration and legal services that I'm about to hand off to Andrea, we offer citizenship classes. And therefore, we do the oath ceremonies working with all the appropriate people so that folks like Anna can become citizens of the United States and feel that empowerment from becoming that citizen. But I'm going to be quiet and ask Andrea to address.
Before you go, I've covered some of those. Are they about once a year that you have a ceremony? Is that about right?
I'm going to let Andrea address that.
That depends on what the Omaha field office of the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services decides.
Okay.
So right now we have it once a year.
Okay.
And in between they have other oath ceremonies at the courthouse here. And some clients also get their oath ceremony in Omaha at the office.
But tell us a little bit more about immigration and legal services and what specifically you cover in that.
Yes. So we work with family immigration services, like clients coming and petitioning or applying for other family members. We also help the refugees once they are out of the resettlement process. Eventually they can apply for permanent residency. We help with that. We also do humanitarian services like victims of crimes, those kind of applications, petitions. We do not do employment immigration law at all. And certain other cases that need court representation, we are not offering at this point, but because we are only having partially accredited Department of Justice representatives, so we can present our clients in front of the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, but not in front of court. But we work very closely with other organizations that service our area, and so then we refer people and help them get the services they need.
Thank you. And the voice you heard there, that's Andrea Parrott. For What's the Frequency at the Mary J. Trailey Community House in Sioux City. I have two officials from the community house, Barb Newhouse, the executive director, and then Andrea, who you just heard from. And we also have Anna Vu, who has used services here as part of her path to becoming a citizen. So Barb and Andrea, we talked initially about what immigrants were coming to Sioux City in the 1910s and 20s when it was founded. How has that changed over the years in terms of where people are hailing from as they're coming to, like, in the late 1900s and like what it is now?
And Andrea can punch back on this one, but I'll tell you, we're seeing a lot more folks coming in from African countries and nations, as well as the South American countries. That said, it's interesting because I think that we've been open and seeing folks come from all sorts of places. One of the things I wanted to not correct but add to what you said, Brett, when you did the introduction.
Yeah.
One of the other areas where people come into the United States because of is we also receive folks who have come in as an example, from Afghanistan, from Vietnam, folks who fought on the side of the United States. And I do not want to lose touch with that. So when people get themselves all edgy about immigration, we also need to step back and realize we had people from other countries who took the side of the United States, fought on our behalf, and they should be welcomed into our country.
Yeah.
I just want to add, we always look at our statistics, and in 2024 we served in the legal department clients from 38 different countries.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for giving that perspective. So, Anna, let's talk with you. Tell me, what is your native nation, and when did you move here?
I came here in 2018.
And what's your native nation?
I came from Vietnam.
Vietnam. Okay. And why did you want to move here? What was it that brought you to Siouxland or to America?
My husband sponsored me, and he is living in Sioux City for a long time, and he referred Mary J. Trader Community House for me.
And we're going to talk with the community house officials here in a second about the how difficult it is or isn't to become an immigrant. But in your experience, was it easy or difficult to go through the whole process of becoming a citizen?
Yeah, I took a citizenship class at Mary J. Trader Community House, and Miss Carol taught me about America history, about government, and about some law in America. I was learning in her class for over 4 months, and I got a interview for my citizen. I became a U.S. citizen on December 1st, 2023.
Okay, so about a little more than 14 months, something like that? Okay, yeah, okay. Did you think it was difficult?
Yes, it is difficult to learn the new language, and I tried to practice every day by different language, by English, and if you working hard, you can success for your goal.
And so let's turn to the two. Thank you, Anna Vu. I appreciate that. Is it what is the typical? I don't know. Maybe typical. There probably is no typical, but what could be the time frame from when a person first applies to when they finally become? Is like how can that be many months? Can that be years? Because there's a lot of news out there, and people don't necessarily know this. A lot of misinformation, perhaps. But please.
Yes, there's a lot of misinformation. It takes years.
Okay.
And it depends. There are some exceptions. The majority of people need to have permanent resident status for 5 years before they can apply to naturalize. And language is a big issue. It's difficult. English is a difficult language. And then also the civics and history questions are also not easy. A while back, several years ago, there was a bill in the Nebraska legislature to make it mandatory that every high school student would take that test. It didn't go on, but I really liked that because a lot of our United States citizens could not pass that test.
I was going to say, wasn't there? I remember when that came up, like, well, that might be a little too hard for the high school students, right? There was some. I believe I heard
but
some
they
of that.
should.
Yeah.
They should. Yeah.
This episode of What's Your Frequency, I'm at the Mary J. Tralia Community House in Sioux City with two other officials, Andrea Perret, who you just heard, and then Barb Newhouse, who's the executive director, and we also have Anna Vu, who's a client here, who's a patron as part of her journey to becoming a citizen. In an era when immigrants can have a bad rap from some people, what would you two say are the benefits, the good aspects of immigration?
Well, I'll start, but Andrea is much more the what I would call the expert in the area. But from my standpoint, I think what we have to remember is someone who immigrates to this country and who works, they pay taxes. They are a part of making life special. I happened to be yesterday in one of the places I was visiting and having a cup of coffee, and I was sitting there listening to the folks. And there was at one table there was a family all speaking Spanish. At another table there was a family all speaking Vietnamese, and I sat there and I just felt so warm and moved by the richness of what was going on among these two families. And you know what? They may not have understood one another, but what they led with is something I learned from one of our ELL teachers, Barb Spalding, who's a great lady. And I learned your smile is your first language. And what I saw going back and forth among all the people in that coffee shop were smiles. Mm-hmm. They may have been from different countries, but they were smiling and learning from one another. So I think we have to remember that just because you are not born in the United States doesn't mean that you don't bring wonderful value to the country you live in. You get out of whatever place you live in, you get out of what you put into it. And what I see at Mary J. Treya Community House is our families, our immigrants who are coming through Mary J. Treya and working are putting a lot into it, and they are reaping the benefits, but we are reaping the benefits from knowing them.
Okay, Andrea or Anna, either of you?
I just want to, everything that Barb said is very important, and as she said, there is a lot of misinformation out that immigrants are using a lot of our resources and all. They pay taxes, and we even have a lot of immigrants that pay taxes that are not eligible for any of the benefits later. And they help our community be a thriving community in Siouxland here. We have them involved in so many things, and they, the clients that come here, you can tell they're really interested in getting their kids to school and making sure they do well in school, and they want to learn and develop more and become valuable members of our community.
I'm going to also say that, by the way, if you take a look in a state like Iowa, immigration, the work that was done to get things going in the state of Iowa was started by Governor Ray. And so
in the 1970s.
In the 1970s, absolutely. And Iowa has done a great job of making sure we've got a lot of tax dollars coming from in the state of Iowa, coming from folks who came through immigrant communities. Our agriculture has gone up as one of the sustainable areas that involves a lot of folks who are immigrants into this country. And it has given us a new way of looking at food supply, the food supply chain, and new foods that we are all starting to take for granted because we're so used to them.
Mm-hmm. They become the norm in some ways. Yeah, right. Another question about kind of the national conversation of immigration. Is there anything that frustrates you on the discussion of immigration as it's sometimes carried out nationally or maybe even locally sometimes?
I'll let Andrea start with that one.
I'll start with that. The misinformation that has been distributed and that is believed. Just one quick example. Somebody told me, totally convinced that everybody who crosses the border gets a credit card from the government with $1,000 on it. That's totally wrong. Absolutely wrong. Also, people just think that, people can come in and then go get benefits, food stamps and whatever. Not true. There are a lot of barriers and a lot of that needs to be done. And so it's very complicated. It's a very long and difficult process. And part of it is that immigration law has not been updated since the 1990s.
I think the other frustrating part, and again, I'll defer to the expert on this, but the other frustrating part, and a lot that I've learned from Andrea over the time that I've been involved with Mary J. Treya Community House is it's a matter of understanding definitions. You know, the difference between refugee, asylee, immigrant, etc. Those definitions are very important. And when people mow over those definitions, it's what gets them into trouble and leads to that misinformation.
And maybe I'll just add
please.
that because a lot of people think that people just coming across the border are refugees. And yeah, they might be fleeing danger, they might be fleeing poverty, but they are not refugees under legal terms. So then they think, oh, and refugees get all these benefits. Refugees under legal terms are vetted immensely, very thoroughly for years overseas. Once they are admitted to the United States, they have legal status from day one. And they can work really quickly. They can earn money and contribute to the economy. And also they have to repay their flights that the government paid for them to bring them here. So that is a big confusion because refugees, you just think, well, everybody who comes here is a refugee. No, under legal terms, that's very different.
Thank you.
And I think a key thing that Andrea just said that I think would help people is to understand that when they come here, anything that they're given, it's considered a loan. And that loan is repaid over time after they get jobs, etc. They get set up with repayment plans on those things.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. For this episode of What's the Frequency, I'm at the Mary J. Treya Community House in Sioux City. We have three people here. We have Anna Vu, who was a client here and has taken services of the many, many services that are available here. And then we also have two officials, Barb Newhouse and Andrea Perrett. Are the immigrants that you serve, are they picking up on some of the dissension that's sometimes directed at immigrants, and what do they think of it?
We try to make sure that Mary J. Treya Community House is a place where everybody feels welcome and comfortable. But to your point, right now we have a lot of frightened people. They're frightened about what's happening. I'll hand it off to Andrea in just a second to talk about some of the types of things that they're asking us. But I want to go back to what Anna says. The other thing that it brings about with all that goes on is that we have some really strong community partners. So, for example, when we're dealing with tax issues, we bring in the Center for Siouxland. They've got the best VITA program and can be very helpful to our folks. When we're dealing with health issues, we're dealing with Siouxland Community Health. We're working with Siouxland District Public Health. And so we've got a lot of folks that we pull in to do those things. But right now is a frightening time for folks. They are afraid. And so, Andrea, why don't you share a couple of examples of what we've been seeing?
Yeah. So a lot of the clients come and just wonder, okay, what's going to happen? Can I still be here? And certain, if you have permanent residence and you have the right to be here, and as long as you follow the rules and the laws. There are some other groups where it's more concerning, and one of them I want to mention is the DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals or Dreamers,
Right.
Which is a program that is not permanent. It's a temporary. And so a lot of people have been contacting us, can we already renew? But there's a limit. You can only renew so much time before your 2-year permit expires. And just wondering what will happen. And it's hard to know. There are lawsuits going on right now. And during the last administration of our incoming president, he tried to terminate the program. We expect that might happen again. We don't know. So there are certain programs, just the insecurity, not knowing what will happen, not being able to figure out what's happening.
Right. So I had two follow-up questions, and one was kind of more procedural, but just, I guess, more generically, people are afraid that they may be deported. Is that correct, that you're hearing
Yes.
that? Okay. Okay. Is there a rule or a safeguard that if a person is in the process, like you've started the process of being a citizen, that you cannot be deported? Is there any,
Yeah,
what can you speak to that?
I can't give an answer for every case because every case is different, or every petition or application, but there is some protection if you are in the process of something. But that is less secure, than if you have already something.
But it's not ironclad. Like I'm 30% through it, or whatever. I've taken these steps, but maybe maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not. It depends on what kind of petition you have going or application you have going.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. Again, you talked about how like people are just not really informed on this, and that's why we're having. Yeah, that's why this topic is good for the show. And
the other issue is that it's possible that some of the processing times will even expand, and some are already really long. Even if you're a United States citizen and you petition for your spouse, it can take several years. And it used to be somewhat faster. And that could still change again. Or if you petition for your family members, how long is that process? Yeah.
Thank you. And then I guess before we go, just anything else about the topic of immigration that we haven't talked about, or any point that you'd like to hit one more time before
I just think it's important for people to understand that the people coming into our country, for the most part, we've got people that are born and bred in the United States, and they're bad people. And then so you can't paint a brush that everybody that comes into our country is coming in as a bad person, because the majority of everybody coming into our country want to live here, have a good life, be successful, and they are good people with good hearts. And let's stop the nonsense of painting a brush over everyone and making assumptions that are absolutely incorrect.
Thank you. And that voice, that was Barb Newhouse, who's the executive director here at the Mary J. Trillia House. And that'll be a wrap for this edition of What's the Frequency. Thanks to my guests for this discussion on the challenges of immigrants living in America. That's a very big topic here in 2025, as discussed by the new president, Donald Trump. Thanks to executive director Barb Newhouse, plus Andrea Pratt. She's one of the agency's Department of Justice representatives who works with clients on the range of legal immigration matters. And then also Anna Vu. Thank you for being here as well. I appreciate all your time. As I approach the second anniversary for this show, thanks for being a part of our station as we work every day to tell the stories about Siouxland that inform, entertain, and expand the mind. Thank you for listening, and please join us again next week. What's the Frequency airs on Fridays at 10 a.m. and again on Sundays at 2 p.m. Make sure you check out a few of our Siouxland Public Media music shows that air at 10 p.m. We have Mixtape Dance Party on Friday and 10 o'clock Blues on Saturdays. For Siouxland Public Media, I'm Brett Hayworth.